This is a response video to Matt, continuing in the discussion regarding bridging between science and spirituality or religion. Thanks for the video. It undoes a lot of stuff. I mean, it really is an argument about words and when they can be appropriately applied. I'm still stuck a little, just in the sense that I can't let you're still looking to build this bridge, and I'm still saying this is not a bridge we want to build. You have every freedom to explore all kinds of thought experiments, even as a philosophy and as an experience. But science is a discipline. It's the truth is sort of a component of it. I mean, it's sort of got to be built into the hardware, and there's not some point you can say, well, it's okay for us to go with what we feel, to come up with an answer to a question with by answering the question with a feeling or an emotion or a want or a desire, because that's how we get into trouble with the whole religious thing in the first place, is that people aren't looking for the truth, they're looking for a pleasant answer to some hard questions. And I kind of thought you came so close in your last video, to sort of getting it from my perspective, when you kind of got stalled at the end there with this notion that, well, what if this is true, then there's no purpose. And for me, it's not about whether there's a purpose, and it's not about necessarily being happy. It's about the truth, and it's about knowing where we are and what we are, because that's the only way we can find the right road out of that. If it is a bad place, the only way we can find the right road out is if we know where we are. I just don't want to live a lie. I don't want to be victim to other people's perceptions. And we can't help but, in this society, obviously, religion plays a part in our politics. I mean, it is allowed to corrupt that politics, and we end up being controlled by people's dogma and religious dogma. And so there's a legitimate fear and a legitimate resistance to building these bridges, because these bridges just end up empowering people with or justifying all kinds of nonsense, and it's this is the second shot at this video, and it's always they're always better the first time. Oh, I got the wrong speed, so it doesn't matter anyway. No, that's the right speed. Never mind. You see, it's all going to hell. The first video, the sound didn't work. I was just, one of those days. Alright, so anyway, science is this, science isn't just an experiment, with physical devices. It's an experiment we conduct with our imagination. It's a thought experiment. And we, manipulate and bend it to see, test it, to make sure, to verify a conclusion, and so there's, and so I would use an example. I've used this example before, but it's like, emotionally, I'd like to see whales saved, but practically and intellectually, if I run that through my head, I say, well, what would we save them for? Because we know what would happen. As soon as their population stabilizes, then the Japanese will just farm them. And so I've saved them to become farm animals. What have I saved them for then? Their life isn't going to be improved or better and so I haven't done them any favor. And that's the catch here, is that if you don't think it through, what emotionally feels right can be very wrong. Doctors often don't tell patients the truth about their health problems, with the, under the guise that they're seeing to their best interests. But who wants to be living the lie? Who wants to, just because you don't tell them of the horror that's coming, that somehow you've done them a favor, because you've in a sense taken away their capacity to know and react, because almost like that, a brain injury, you've denied them the faculty of knowing. And who wants to live that kind of a compromised life based on somebody else's good intentions or whatever they are? So anyway, so when you get to this, you've gotten to this death question before, and there were some things you said that were, they were just way too poetic for my taste. And then even what you said now about the idea of living forever, and that you wouldn't even want that. Well, I'm not sure what I would want, just because we never seem to run out of desire. It's part of the nature of this animal we're living, this beast we live as part of, this body, as you call it. It's always hungry, and there's always more adventure to have, and it's not, as much as you can get tired of it, it's hard to give up on it at the same time. It's hard to say, oh, no more of this, no more of that, no more anything, because you haven't innate perception of want. You just want more, and it's hard to say, oh no, I don't want another cigarette, or I don't want another chocolate cake, or a woman, or whatever the thing is, because you're always going to kind of feel that want. And so, but regardless, even so, let's say, and that didn't even touch upon the fact that life would have to radically change if people have more longevity, because obviously you can't have children, reproduce, and do all those other things that people just do as a matter of routine. But anyway, let's just take the argument a step further. So let's say you're satisfied at a certain point, and you say you just like to reboot, and that's basically another word of saying reincarnate or whatever. And I know you've read a lot of the Eastern philosophy, and so there's this notion that we come back as bugs and squirrels or some other animal because we've somehow committed some sin, and so we don't come back as the higher organism. But regardless, who wants to, I wouldn't want that reincarnation, and as a human, in terms of that context even, to think that you're just rebooting and you're going to go to another new adventure. Well, no, the adventure isn't going to be the same, because you're not going to be, the odds are you're not going to be, upper middle class or whatever, rich, American, good life. You're going to be Bangladesh, dirt poor, crappy life. And that's where I see how it's important that we look at truths, because it's a romantic notion to think of reincarnation, but if you apply, especially if you're going to relive a new version of yourself, of the life you've had, but if you apply the question in the logical context, you're not going to have those options. You're not going to have, the probability is that you're going to live a really crappy life. The average human has a pretty cruddy life, and that's the fact. And until that fact changes, rebooting isn't too attractive. I'll cling to this consciousness just because I don't want to be, a self-aware, impoverished, ignorant, human being, in this context, because that's where I would end up. That's the law of averages. And if you go back and say, well, then you could be an animal or something else, things get even more dismal. And I wouldn't want it.